Yes, guys, and welcome. So if you can't really tell what the title of this video is, it's basically how you're going to be building your capital as a young guy in your maybe late teens, early 20s. And the reason I made this video, because I was in a sticky situation when I was 17 years old. I had maybe £300, £500 to my name on a good day in my bank, and that was pretty much it. And it's not the best place to be, basically. And now I've scaled that obviously since then to being well over £100,000 in assets and actual liquid money. I've also built two pretty big businesses within the meantime. But what I've done for today is make it sort of a context that's fair for everybody, is I've taken the average from a 20-year-old guy, savings, incomes, bills, what they are, and I basically put it together, and I want to show you the breakdown that I would take if I were to go back into that situation, know the information that I've got today, and speaking to the people that I've met as well. So, like I said, this is sort of the information that's Google given me as an average 20-year-old. So sort of what they have in savings, what they have in income, what they have in bills. Yes, for some of you, that might be not much money at all. That might be loads of money. But like I said, it is an average, so sort of base it off the back of that. So average 20-year-old in the UK has about £1,500 in savings. This could be from birthdays, this could be, gifts, this could be money they saved up from a job, this could be money they've inherited, whatever it may be. Income. So this is taken from a full-time worker who is 20, by the way. This is not uni, this is not part-time, this is not apprentices, whatever. This is just a normal 9 to 5 in the UK, full-time at 20. And also bills. Obviously, I know situations are going to vary, whether or not you live at home, whether or not you have a car, whether or not all the other things, but it is an average. So, savings wise, £1,500. Say you're getting £1,700 a month, I would always try and put at least a minimum of 20% of it away. I would say for a lot more of you, put away a third. If you can, put away half. But if all you can do is 25% of it or 20% of it, sorry, which I think I've done in this case, put away at least £350 a month. Where do you put this £350? I see a lot of people just put it into a savings account or whatever it may be. It is like one of the most stupid things you can do. Nowadays, inflation is so high, you are actually losing money by putting it into a bank account. So, next best thing you can do, put it into an ISA or a savings account or an investing account. Stocks and shares ISA trading 212 is probably the easiest one I'd recommend. You can put £20,000 into it tax-free every single year. So there's a really important way, and the reason that I'm saying this is because, say you were to do this, and I know this is over a longer period of time, £350, I know it's in dollars in this case, but whatever, imagine it's in pounds, 20 years, I know that ages, but if you're only putting away 20%, and obviously your salary is going to go up when you get older, £350 isn't too much. If you can consistently do that every single month for 20 years, 10 years, however many long it may be, and it's returning 11% interest rather than, I don't know, a bank that might return 3, obviously there's no sort of interest rate variables, and how much is that compounding? In 20 years, it'll be worth 269,000, which, obviously you're putting a lot of money away, but this is where I want you to look at. This is how much your monthly contributions are, this green line, and then this is what your compound interest are with the monthly contributions. Obviously that 11% that you're getting is tallying up and it's adding and it's compounding with the amount that you're putting in. So obviously the more you've got in there, the more is being returned. As you can see, this line, it starts to get quite sharp, quite steep. And the further you go along, that is why compound interest is so important. And I would advise so many of you to start a stocks and shares ISA if you haven't already. It's one of the things that I wish I did earlier. I started at about 19 years old, and I was going to say, obviously sometimes it goes down slightly, sometimes it goes up, but the main thing is being consistent and adding in money into that every single month. It's one of the best lessons that, I've learned, and I would encourage so many of you younger guys to also do. So, adding money into this consistently if we can. Next thing. Income wise, so you got your bills here, £600. Let's say this is your phone, your car, maybe your rent if you live with parents, petrol, gym money, whatever it may be. Average, like I said, £600. You are now left with £750. Then I would probably split this into wants and also self-investments. So wants is obviously, going out with friends, eating out, doing the nicer things, maybe buying a t-shirt, whatever it might be. And then I'd probably say the other half of this, if you can, into self-investment. So you're probably thinking, what on earth is self-investment, Tom? This is self-investment, and this is what like I said, I've learned and what I wish I knew when I was 17 or 18 years old. Networking. So this could literally be traveling for a networking day out. As boring as that may sound, surrounding yourself with people that are, doing better than you in a line of work that you'd like to get into, even if it's just, shaking a couple hands. Because like I said, I'm a firm believer that, shaking a few hands will get you so much further than a university degree will ever do. And it's done so much for me. Courses, coaching. People say, oh, courses, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you are learning something, it is not a waste, no matter how much money you spend on it. I've spent, probably £20,000 on courses, coaches, and education in my time. And that's over 2 years, by the way. one of the best investments. I would not be here without it if I didn't do so. So whether this is learning skills, whether this is building a business, whether this is getting stock for your business, whether this is, like I said, getting a train, getting a coffee. And one thing that I would recommend, if you are doing networking or you're meeting someone, offer to get their thing. If it's a coffee, offer to pay for their coffee, because people remember the small details. As I say, people will always relay, or you want to be spoken of in a high reputation. Doing something like that, small things people remember. I promise you, one of the best things I've learned as well. Obviously, when it comes to the wants, you can spend more, you can spend less. I would say sort of stick to this on average. I would say, what is that your income? Sort of 20, 25%. As a young guy, probably a lot of people spend way more than that, which I get. It's easy to do. You're young, you want to make memories. But, if you can, try and keep it as low as possible. Within this self-investment as well, I would also like to add memories in here too. So this can be things like holidays, that sort of stuff. Like, I'm not the boring police. Like, go out, have your fun. You are young. Fair enough. The time goes quickly. I'm getting older as the day goes on. But I would also say try and, if you're trying to go about this smart and you feel like, now's sort of the time to lock in, that's sort of the structure I would stick to. But another thing that I'd like to mention is when you look at your savings, so like I said, whether this is a lot more, whether it's a lot less, whether you've got no savings, whether it's like around this amount here, don't just have that sat. Don't just have that sat in a stocks and shares ISA and never touch it. If a valuable and a legitimate opportunity comes up and there is a reason and a justification behind it, take that opportunity, i.e. investing in something, paying for something, getting some sort of mentoring, some self-investment, whatever you want to call it. Because this is the one thing that stopped me and prevented me moving so much quicker. Because I liked, for example, looking at my bank account and having sort of like a longer or a bigger number in there. I liked, for example, having that comfort, and it is a safety net at the end of the day. But do you really think, some of the richest people in the world were never in a sticky situation where, okay, financially, they didn't have loads. Sometimes you probably heard that saying about taking risks is literally the only way to move forward, and it is so true. But they also obviously need to be calculated risks. So, for example, if you can see yourself succeeding with whatever you're buying or you're having success with, do it. Because, that opportunity is not going to stick around for. And the last thing that you want to do, because you've got to think 5-10 years down the line, okay, say you spend this 1,500 or say you spend this 1,000 or 5,000 or however much is in there. 5-10 years down the line, is it really going to make much of a difference? You're really going to be like, oh, I'm so annoyed that I spent that or I invested it in this, that, whatever. Probably not. It's not going to have much of an impact. Maybe if you're 30 years old and this number's like 100,000, yeah, it might have a bit more of an impact. But when you're young, you've got the money, you've got the time, take these opportunities. Obviously, make sure they're calculated. You've done sort of, I suppose, the risk assessment. But if it genuinely makes sense to you, there is no point having that money sat there because, like I always say to anybody, a self-investment has the highest ROI. So when we're talking interest, how much compound interest are you going to get? You determine it. So, for example, the first course that I ever bought, I lost money on. The second course I ever bought, I don't know if I made money and lost it. I can't really remember too much. The third one that I invested into, which is pretty much all the money that I had at the time, the ROI is being insane because I was going to say that's probably made me multi-six figures. Like we're talking probably 200, 300 pounds, it's 300,000 pounds off that investment. And that investment was maybe like 2K at the time. Like if my maths is correct, 100x, if not more. So yeah, it's never a bad thing. You just got to make sure you've done the calculated risk. You're not being stupid with your money. But like I said, if I were to going back to where I was back in the day and basing it off like this average 20-year-old's income, salary, savings, bills, etc., that's sort of the way that I'd split it up. Obviously, some people are going to completely disagree. Some people are going to be on the same sort of tracks. But I think, if you're genuinely trying to build something as a young guy, that is the sort of way that I would go about it. And if you've got any questions, you can feel free to message me. But if you do want any other hand or, you want, for example, my full breakdown in details for all these other things, then make sure you head over to my Instagram and drop me a message. But yeah, hopefully that's been helpful, guys. Like I said, I'm not a financial, advisor or anything like that. Don't take this literally. But that's sort of the rough scale that I would base it off and what I sort of personally use now.